Chapter 2, Part 2. Education without values. Universities are turning out highly skilled barbarians because we don't provide a framework of values to young people, who more and more are searching for it. Stephen Muller, President, Johns Hopkins University. True education is training both the head and heart. An uneducated thief may steal from the freight car, but an educated one may steal the entire railroad. We need to compare for knowledge and wisdom and not for grades. Knowledge is spelling up fact, wisdom is simplifying it. One could have good grades and degree and still not learn much. The most important thing one can learn is to learn to learn. People confuse education with ability to memorize facts. Educating the mind without morals creates demands in society. Knowledge is not power. We often are told that knowledge is power. Not really. Knowledge is information. It is potential power and it becomes power only when it is acted upon. What is the difference between a person who cannot read and a person who can but does not read? As Ben Franklin said, not a whole lot. Learning is a lot like eating. It is not how much you eat that matters. What matters is how much you can digest. Knowledge is potential power. Wisdom is real power. Education takes many forms. It is not just grades and a degree, it is cultivating your strength, learning self-discipline, listening, eagerness to learn. Our minds are like muscles. Stretch or shrink. It all depends on how much or how little exercise them. If you think education is expensive, try ignorance. Derek Book. Education does not mean good judgment. There is a story about a man who sold hot dogs by the roadside. He was illiterate, so he never read newspapers. He was hard for hearing, so he never listened to the radio. His eyes were weak, so he never watched television. But enthusiastically he sold lots of hot dogs. His sales and profit went up. He ordered more meat and got himself a bigger and better stove. As his business was growing, the son, who had recently graduated from college, joined his father. Then something strange happened. The son asked, "Dad, aren't you aware of the great recession that is coming our way?" The father replied, "No, but tell me about it." The son said, "The international situation is terrible. The domestic situation is even worse. We should be prepared for the coming bad times." The man thought that since his son had been to college, read the papers and listened to the radio, he ought to know and his advice should not be taken lightly. So the next day, the father cut down his order for meat and buns, took down the sign and was no longer an enthusiastic. Very soon fewer and fewer people bothered to stop at his hot dog stand, and his sales started coming down rapidly. The father said to his son, "Son, you are very right. We are in the middle of a recession. I am glad you warned me ahead of time." What morals can we take away from this story? Number one, our expectation can create a self-fulfilling prophecy. Number two, many times we confuse intelligence with good judgment. Number three, a person may have high intelligence but poor judgment. Number four, choose your advisors carefully but use your own judgment. Number five, a person can and will be successful with or without formal education if they have the 5 C's: character, commitment, conviction, courtesy, courage. Number 6. The tragedy is that there are many walking encyclopedias who are living failures. Intelligence is quickness to learn. Skill is an ability. Competence is the ability along with the willingness and desire to apply what is learned. Desire is the attitude that makes a skillful person competent. Many skillful people are incompetent. Ability without right attitude is wasted. The first duty of university is to teach wisdom, not trade; character, not technicalities; Winston Churchill. What does it mean to be educated? Whom then do I call educated? First, those who manage well the circumstances which they encounter day by day, and those who can judge situation approximately as they arise and rarely miss the suitable course of an action. Next, those who are honorable in their dealings with all men, bearing easily what is unpleasant or offensive in others, and being as reasonable with their associates as humanly possible. Furthermore, those who hold their pleasure always under control and are not unduly overcome by their misfortunes, bearing up under them bravely and in manner worthy of our common nature. Most important of all, those who are not spoiled by their success, who do not desert their true selves, but hold their ground steadfastly as wise and sober-minded men, rejoicing no more in the good things that have come to them through chance than in those which through their own nature and intelligence are there since birth. Those who have a character which is in accord not with one of these things, but with all of them, these are educated, possessed of all the virtues. Socrates between 470 to 399 BC. In a nutshell, educated persons are those who choose wisely and courageously under any circumstances. If they choose between wisdom over foolishness, good over bad, virtue over vulgarities, regardless of the academic degree they have, then they are educated. What is broad-based education? Some animals in a forest decided to start a school. The students included a bird, a squirrel, a fish, a dog, a rabbit, and mentally retreated eel. A board was formed to determine the curriculum, and it was decided that flying, trees climbing, swimming, and burrowing would give a broad-based education. All animals were required to take all subjects. The bird was excellent at flying and was getting A's, but when it came to burrowing, it kept breaking its beak and wing and started failing. Pretty soon it started making C's in flying, and of course, in tree climbing and swimming it was getting F's. The squirrel was great at tree climbing but was failing in swimming. The fish was best swimmer but couldn't get out of the water and thus got F's in everything else. The dog did not join the school, stopped paying taxes and kept fighting with the administration to include barking as a part of curriculum. The rabbit got A's in burrowing, but tree climbing was a real problem. It kept falling and landing on its head, suffered brain damage, and soon couldn't even burrow properly and got C's in that too. The mentality retreated eel, who did everything all as well, became the valedictorian of the class. The board was happy because everybody was getting a board-based education. A true broad-based education prepares students for life without losing their areas of specialization and competence. We are all gifted with some strengths. The small size of the hummingbird, weighing only tenth of an ounce, gives it the flexibility to perform complicated maneuvers such as beating its wings 75 times a second. This enables the hummingbird to drink nectar from flowers which hovering, but it cannot soar, glide or hope. The ostrich at 300 pounds is the largest bird, but it can't fly. However, its legs are so strong that it can run up to 50 miles per hour, taking strides of 12 to 15 feet. Ignorance. Being ignorant is not so much as shame as being unwilling to learn to do the things right way. Benjamin Franklin. The illusion of knowledge is not education, but ignorance. Foolish people have a strange kind of confidence which comes only with ignorance. There is nothing wrong with ignorance, but making a career out of it stupidity. Some people accumulate ignorance and then confuse it with education. Ignorance is not bliss. It is misery, tragedy, poverty and sickness. If ignorance is bliss, why aren't more people happy? If a little knowledge is dangerous, so is lot of ignorance, which leads to pettiness, fear, dogmatism, egotism, and prejudice. Wisdom is nothing more than dispelling ignorance. We live in an information age. It is estimated that the amount of information is doubling every year. With the information so readily available, it is easy to dispel ignorance. It is sad to see that we are taught everything but the most essential thing. We are taught the three R's: reading, writing, and arithmetic. But what good is intellectual education without understanding human dignity and compassion? Schools are a fountain of knowledge. Some students come to drink, some to sip, and others just to gargle. Common sense. We are born with five senses: touch, taste, sight, and smell, and hearing. But successful people have sixth sense: common sense. Common sense is the ability to see things as they are and do them as ought to be done. The application of education and knowledge without common sense is meaningless. Common sense may not necessarily as a result of education. The best education without common sense is worthless. An abundance of common sense is called wisdom. Sharpen your axe. John, a woodcutter, worked for a company for 5 years but never got a rise. The company hired Bill and within a year he got a rise. The John resented Bill's getting a rise after only a year and went to his boss to talk about it. The boss said, "You are still cutting the same number of trees you were cutting 5 years ago. We are a result-oriented company and would be happy to give you a rise if your productivity goes up." John went back, started hitting harder and putting longer hours, but he still wasn't able to cut more trees. He went back to his boss and told him his dilemma. The boss told John to go talk to Bill. Maybe there is something Bill knows that you and I don't. John asked Bill how he managed to cut more trees. Bill answered, "After every tree I cut, I take a break for 2 minutes and sharpen my axe." When was the last time you sharpened your axe? When was the last time you sharpened your axe? Past glory and education don't count for much. We have to continuously sharpen the axe. Feed your mind. Just as our bodies need good food every day, our mind need good thoughts every day. The key words in the preceding sentence are good food and good thoughts. If we feed our body with junk food and our mind with bad thoughts, we will have both a sick body and a sick mind. We need to feed our mind with the pure and the positive to stay on track.